I am so excited about today's episode. We have, oh gosh, how long have we known each other now, guys? 25 years almost?
It seems that way, yes. It's been
Yeah.
been a very pleasant relationship in a long time.
Yeah. So we have Peter Gilbert here and we have Loren Frasco here from HighPoint Law Offices in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And I'll put their link to their website and everything we talk about today in the show notes. But today I really want to talk about how to enroll your client service coordinator, team director. What other titles do you have, Loren?
Yeah,
Paralegal.
paralegal, team leader, client services director, executive director, CO, CFO, HR.
HR, yes. There's not one person listening to this podcast that cannot resonate with that. When you're operating a boutique law firm and you have in your law firm, you have Peter here as primary attorney, and then next in command is Loren. And then who else do you have in your law firm? How big's your law firm, guys?
We have a part-time associate, Nikki. We have a paralegal who helps with the state administration and funding. And we have administrator / receptionist who right now, that's the team right now. We have a law student we think coming on next year, and we may be bringing on a marketing intern shortly. We might know this afternoon, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
And
great.
we have a virtual paralegal that we use as well for our Medicaid apps.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. So you have a decent sized team there. I want us to talk a little bit about the process in regards to initial consultations and really working. Lauren, I think you said before we started recording that you and Peter make such a dynamic team. You make a great team. And there are many law firms that I speak with that struggle with the calendar, people getting people in with the initial consultation because everybody wants to see, the guru. They want to see Peter. They want to meet with Peter, and how you all have navigated that and kind of tag teamed the initial consultation. I'd love for you to share with us your process of what you do. And also, Peter, maybe speak into how you kind of let go of control a little bit of that and you all started playing with it.
Well, I think I could just intro this and Loren can be more detailed, but it started actually a long time ago when I think this was something recommended to us about having a triage call before the client ever came in the door. And Loren has done those from the beginning and does 95% of them. And that's about a 15-minute call. So Loren has been the first real person they have a conversation with before they come into the meeting. So that has set the stage, I think, for her role.
Yeah, I think so, because when they come in for the initial meeting, we've already had a 15-20-minute conversation on the phone. And so when I walk in, I say, hi, I'm Loren, we talked on the phone, and they're like, oh yeah, so they're happy to have a face to go along with the, the voice.
Yeah.
So, and I always tell them at the initial meeting that, on the triage call, I always tell them that I'll be there, to meet them at the initial meeting as well.
So you've already done the setup. So they scheduled the initial consultation, and then they have the call with you. How long after they scheduled the initial consultation before you do that 15-minute triage intro call?
Well, it's usually if I'm available, if I'm at the office and available, they may get through to me pretty quick, that same day. But we try to have the triage call at least a couple of days before the initial meeting. We like them to get our questionnaire first, our packet, so that they can kind of look at that and review that before my call.
Yes.
So that they have the information that I'm looking for.
Yeah, you just hit a big button that that I see how beneficial this is because, right? I'm sure you all experience this. You send out the information packet, you send out the personal information form they have to
Mhm.
complete. And what's the biggest complaint in every law firm? They don't fill it out. They get
Right.
overwhelmed with it. So is when they have that packet as part of your intro call, trying to get that completed as much as possible?
I try to get as much of that information as, I'm not getting everybody's names, birth dates and all that. What I'm really getting is, more about their family. Do they, of course, I want to know if they have children, if they have grandchildren, what their goals are. We do talk about their assets, what they have, what they're trying to protect. So it's really more of a goals call. We do talk about what's on the questionnaire, and that's sometimes a hurdle because people will say, well, that was everything that was on the questionnaire, so I don't have to complete it. And I'm like, no, you have to complete it because otherwise we can't prepare your documents. I said, we always use the information from the questionnaire to complete your documents. So, it's all part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Lauren, I think, Lauren, you also Lauren gets a sense of the tone emotionally. Where are they? Is this a big emergency or are they just curious? A little more, just the tone of that conversation, I think helps to, and then Lauren and I can talk about that. Lauren, I was saying, about the tone of the
Yes,
conversation, what's
definitely.
on their mind. And then I think we're better prepared when we're meeting them face to face or mask to mask right now, but
Yeah.
Right.
we're better
Yeah.
prepared for that.
If somebody, if their number one question is, how much is this going to cost me? I know right away, it's like, I'll just tell Peter, these people are very price conscious. It was with their very first question they asked me was, how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
So,
Is
I
there,
try to feel them out.
yeah, there's two questions I have on this that I know many people in your position are going to ask. Number one is that how do you facilitate that conversation to keep it down to 15 minutes? Because as we all know, once they hear your lovely voice, you connect with them, it's a goal setting call. Now they want to open their entire life story and share that with you. And if you don't facilitate that conversation, I could see you probably being on the phone for an hour.
Yeah, well, that's happened maybe once or twice. I usually try to keep them to 15 or 20 minutes. And I think it's because I'm not asking the particulars about I'm not asking each kid's names, birth dates, all that. I'm just saying, do you have children? Oh, you have 3 kids. Do they live local? Trying to kind of get an idea of what their family, and then, I'll say, are there any issues with these kids that we should be aware of? Any kind of special needs or anything like that? But I try not to engage them too much in that. I just really want to know why they're calling us, what their situation is that prompted them to make the call, and then when it comes to the asset information, I try to get that through that quickly because sometimes they don't know me. They don't really have a relationship with our firm yet. Most people, it's surprising how quickly they will tell me everything that they have. It's like, and I always say to them, you're coming to us for estate planning. Estate planning is all about your stuff, your family and your stuff. So now we have to talk about your stuff. What do you have? And we go through real estate, we go through investment account, not individually, but how much do you have put aside in investment accounts? Is that retirement? Oh, it's not? Okay. So I try to go as quickly as possible. When we do have a chatter on the line, it can take about a half an hour, but most people I find I'm done within 20 minutes.
Okay, great.
No,
And
go
go ahead,
ahead.
Peter. No,
We
go
have a
ahead.
form. There's a template of the
Yes.
questions. It's about a 2-page template that
Yeah.
Lauren goes through, and she writes in, at least the summary of their answers. So that's something I can look at before the meeting without having to have Lauren regurgitate everything they talked about. I
Yeah.
can just look at that and then if Loren may have some observations beyond it, but I have, that way have better preparation, or
Yeah,
whoever was going to be
I
in the
think
meeting
that's
has
key.
better preparation.
Yeah, and I do. I think that's key, Peter, is that I have a script that I'm following. So that kind of keeps the pace,
Yeah.
It's just not an open-ended conversation. There's a definite script that I run through.
Yeah, and it sounds like even just hearing you talk that you're setting the tone and the message to the client that this truly is an intake call. And
Mhm.
from there, when they tell you about their stuff, their kids, what have you, and then when they meet with Peter, you've already developed that like, know, and trust rapport with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do think that that is true.
Let me ask you this, for this intake call, triage call that you're doing, Loren, is there ever a time where you're like, they're not a good fit for us, and then you actually
Mhm.
cancel the call or the meeting with Peter?
Yeah, there's been times that especially if I see that what they were looking for something that we don't do, then I will tell them, that's not really what we do here. We don't do litigation. We don't handle that type of thing that you're looking for. So I will either refer them out or not. I might just say, we don't do that. I don't have anybody to refer you to. But if I do know of somebody, I will refer it out. Especially if somebody is just looking for just a document, that they just want, a simple will. They tell me that they have nothing, and, and I try to get rid of those types of people, if I hate it to sound that way, but.
Well, we know good attorneys who would be
Right.
happy to do a low cost will, but they'll do okay, and
Right.
they'll be well served.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
always explain to people, we do full estate plans. If what they're looking for is $100 will or a $200 will, we're not the people to talk to.
Yep. Great. It's very clear. It's upfront. You say that expectation. They're probably grateful for it. When they say, how much does it cost? And you give them the sliding scale, and we all know it depends. And then you
Right.
talk about the range. Is there
Right.
ever a time where they say, no, it's not a good fit?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
been times when people are like, oh, you're kidding. And I'd be like, well, what we do is, full estate plans, and it's very, comprehensive, and, and if they're don't want to pay it, then I won't schedule their initial meeting.
That's great. That's fantastic. So you educate to motivate them, you empower them, you give them the distinction between a will and trust, and kind of speak into the value that you create and why your fees are set the way that they are. It's not about the fee, it's about the cost if you don't do the proper planning. And if they're not a fit, what I love about what you guys are saying is that it's okay. Let me refer you out somewhere else, because you're protecting Peter's time, protecting your time, and then you're opening up the calendar for somebody else who says, that's it. Okay.
And, sometimes they get through, sometimes people, surprise us at the initial meeting, when they're like, oh, well, we didn't expect it would cost that much, but, and sometimes those people have a lot of money, so
Yeah.
it surprises us, they'll have, a couple $1 million, and you quote them, a couple thousand to do an estate plan, and they're like, oh.
Yeah. But they still keep the appointment and they still show up,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Great. So they know what to expect. You have very clear upfront conversations, and they still keep
Yeah.
the appointment. And those that don't, that's okay.
Yeah, I try not to quote fees if I don't have to. On that initial call, we always quote a
Good.
fee at the initial meeting, but not on the initial call.
And Loren, just remind me, when you do explain the next meeting, do you tell them how long that next meeting is supposed to be, like a 1 hour meeting? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So set that expectation too.
Yeah, they usually ask. They usually ask how long that meeting's gonna be, and I always tell them it's about an hour. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then do you charge for initial consultations in your firm?
It depends. If they're referred in by either a client or an advisor, then no, we
Or if they
don't.
came through our marketing.
Yes,
Yes.
through our marketing, like from a workshop or something, no.
Okay, if
But
they tend to
somebody says that
workshop.
they just found us on Google, we will quote them an initial fee to, to meet with us. But then
Great.
we apply it towards their estate planning.
Great. Okay, perfect. So it sounds like you really have a phenomenal intake process in regards to getting them to initial consultation. Absolutely well worth Lauren's time and protecting your time, because when you walk into the conference room, Peter, you feel like you have people that are invested and want to be there, right?
Oh, the internet is acting up again.
There you go. You're good. Yeah. So, but did you hear my question? So by the time you do all your legwork, Lauren, your hard work, and then by the time they make it in the conference room, they're engaged, they're enrolled, they want to be there, and they are very, very clear on the framework, how long the meeting's going to last, what the meeting's going to look like, and by and large, what they should expect to pay.
Pretty much, yeah. Yes. The only time I really ever talk about fee ranges is when they ask.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I don't really get into fees. And most times when people will ask me what our fees are, I'm like, well, we really don't know until we've had the initial meeting and know exactly what the attorney's going to recommend for you, so, but I might tell them, what a range is, but unless they really ask me, I try to stay away from that.
Okay. So now they get in the conference room. Talk to me a little bit about the dynamic duo and how you all, I love that, Lauren, you set the expectation up front. They know you. And so you've already developed a relationship with them so that it's not like they always need everything from the attorney. You're able to protect Peter's time and tag team this. So talk to me about how your initial consultation goes.
Well, kind of an initial question, just, did you get here all right? Did you find us okay? And the reason I learned this is I want to see who answers that question, because they're probably the lead dog in that pack. So who's the decision maker there? But doesn't always work, but it's a way to break the ice, but also to find out who's the talker and the leader maybe, and who's not.
Gotcha. Oh, and are you there together? What role are you playing, Peter? And what
We
role are
have
you playing?
usually been there together. I will say, I appreciate your discussion with Lauren. I've reviewed her notes, so we don't have to go back over all that, and they appreciate that. And then, I may say, what is it you want? And so I guess the purpose of this meeting is partly to dig deeper. I mean, I've got a great background. I know where to put the focus, but I'd like to hear their language and we're results based. And what is it you're hoping to accomplish, even if you think it's impossible? So that's where I tell them we have this basic information. Thank you, but I need to know what it is you're really hoping to accomplish by working with us.
Great questions. Great questions. So really, dovetailing on the goal setting. Lauren, are you in? So have you handled initial consultations? Have you been in there as well?
Well, I'm on all of Peter's initial consultations, unless I'm on vacation. But yeah, so
there's a reason
I'm in
for
there.
That. Lauren is the pricing person.
Oh, great. Okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah, Peter is very wimpy. He's too nice. He's too nice, and
which is totally true. And also we have lots of specialized versions, as I assume a lot of colleagues do. So I don't remember, and we update them so I'm not sure I remember what the price is for this.
Right.
And number one, and number two, Lauren's right, and I know we have to give them the price, and I know our prices are fine and well justified, but for something in me, it's a little tougher for me.
It's
Yeah.
very
But,
common with estate
yeah.
planning attorneys
Oh, I
that,
know. I'm a social worker
yeah,
partly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he would come out of these initial meetings and he would say this, I'd say, did you quote them a fee? And he'd say, yeah. And he'd tell me what he quoted them. I'm like, Peter, that's not our fee for that. He even had a written menu. I mean, he had it all written out, but he was so involved with talking, he forgot, he couldn't find it in the packet. So finally I said, that's it, I'm going in. So I've been going into meetings for a couple of years now, and yeah, so Peter talks to them, kind of feels them out, prepares them for the type of planning that he thinks that they should have, whether it's a will plan or a trust plan or an asset protection plan. And then he says, and now Loren will talk to you about the legal services agreement and the fee.
And the process. And
And
you'll
the
talk about
process.
the whole process too. We have
Right.
handouts for that.
Right. So I do. So I go through what the process is with them and talk about the legal services agreement and quote them the fee. Sometimes, I up it a little and sometimes I lower it a little, but, depending upon the conversation, if they don't need our full package, if we're only doing, 3/4 of what we normally do, I might drop it a little bit. But if I feel like they're going to be a pain in the neck, or if Peter's promising them extra things that I know that are not in our package, then I will raise it, whereas Peter's very quick to give things away for free. Oh, this is what we normally do, but I'll throw in the extra, will for your mother, or powers of attorneys for your kids. I'll throw those in. So I'm there to prevent that.
Oh, I love it.
Or to get paid for it. To actually get the legal services agreement signed and a check,
Yes.
not, because, we were having the situation where he would leave the meeting and he'd say, oh, send them the legal services agreement. Well, you had it in the packet, so it wasn't getting signed. So we need to get it signed.
Well,
Lauren also, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll
Lauren will review the legal services agreement,
Right.
the key parts of it with them.
Right.
And some of the policies. And I think that's been helpful. So it takes care of questions that might have been coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and it cuts down tremendously on the follow-up, because we all know back in the day, before you have a process like you all have,
Mhm.
that they leave with the fee agreement or the legal service agreement, and then they get home and the dishwasher just broke or what have you, and then they put the documents in the kitchen drawer, and
Right.
years later the kids call when something happens and they're like, oh, we saw your mom and dad's attorney. And like, no, they never
Yeah.
followed through.
Yeah, that has happened before. When we hate sending home LSAs, we just don't like to do it that way. If they're not ready to sign the legal services agreement, I try not to give it to them. I say, well, why don't you guys think about it? Give us a call, and if you want to go forward, we'll send you the legal services agreement. Yeah, that's usually a disaster when you send it home.
I agree.
But the other thing that's good is that, Peter's calendar is pretty booked. So if the meeting looks like it's going long and we're just at the point where we're discussing the legal services agreement, Peter at that point can bow out. He doesn't need to sit there while we sign the legal services agreement and talk about our privacy policy and get an authorization signed. He can, if he has a phone call or another meeting coming up, he can at that point just leave.
Yeah, that's great. And I would assume, so at that point, you kind of schedule out all their additional meetings or design and sign, so you don't have to follow up with that as well?
We usually schedule the design that day. The signing meeting, if they want to, they can schedule that day, but we prefer to schedule the signing meeting at the design.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay. And now talk to us a little bit, Lauren, about your comfort level, like a couple years ago when you went into this process, and Peter, your comfort level with trying this new process of you coming in. And I mean, you're client service coordinator, paralegal, all these things, and you're coming in quoting fees to a client and going through a legal agreement. Talk to us a little bit about your process of getting comfortable and confident with that.
Well, it was really scary at first. You know, I used to get angry with Peter for not doing it. And then I said, "Oh,
That's okay. The joys of working from home.
hey, let me let him out."
Yeah, yeah.
I
Peter,
think,
talk to us about you
yeah,
letting Lauren in the
for
room.
me, it was very smooth because by that time, Lauren had been working with me for a long time, knew her very well, had no doubt about her ability. I know it was new to her, and I totally get that. So I think, Lauren, I was saying for me, it wasn't a big bump in the road for me,
No,
but
you've
for
been
you,
wanting,
it was,
you want me to do everything, all the initial meetings too. You'd rather not be there, I think, sometimes.
well, sometimes I do feel that that might be a good idea sometimes. But anyway, for me, it was an easy, I don't think I minded it much. And but I think for Lauren, for you, it was, you know, stepping into a different role directly with the client. But I thought you did fine from the get-go.
Yeah,
And it also, you can give me the feedback on the meeting. We could compare
yeah,
notes or just chat a bit about the meeting. How did it go? To something you
right.
should have done or shouldn't have done, or that really worked well. So it's been a positive.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that because it is good, just like we always say to them, it's good to have a second set of ears with you when they come in. It's good for Peter and I because sometimes I'll catch something or I'll remember something from the triage call. And so I can kind of bring that up in the meeting that they told me or said to me, you know, in the initial meeting, you know, the initial call. So I don't know. And Peter is very good about, I'm kind of a big mouth sometimes, and Peter allows me to actually be part of the conversation in the initial meeting. So sometimes I might ask a question, you know, or Peter might be leading it one way and I'll know that the client had something else in mind from our initial call, and I'll kind of lead him back in a different direction. So it's very much a you know, a collaborative effort.
I would assume that that really helps. Now, the goal isn't to close, but it's about to help and to serve and for people to take the next right move so they are on the journey of estate planning and proper planning. But I would assume with the two of you having this collaboration of you, Lauren, bringing back what you got out of that initial consultation phone call, like, wow, they really listen. And the reason people hire you is because they feel heard, they feel safe, they feel acknowledged. And so for you to say, remember in the call, blah, 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 and you bring that back in, or it might be in regards to where you see Peter might be going too deep down a legal technical tunnel or getting off track, or maybe getting too in the weeds with the legalese, that you can kind of bring it back in alignment with in regards to the client's goals and maybe bring it down to client language versus attorney language, right?
Right, exactly. Well, actually, you know, Peter has always been very good about using regular words. You know, he's not a big legalese guy, but it is funny how, you know, sometimes we will use a term, and I've actually worse about it than Peter is. And the client will say, "What does that mean?" You know, but yeah, I think it is. I don't know. I think Peter and I have just worked together for so long that, it's kind of like you and Roz, you can complete each other's sentences if you had to.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But when you started this part of the process, even though you knew him for so long, you said it was scary in the beginning when
Yeah,
you
it
went in
was
there.
scary, especially, and I have so much more empathy now for attorneys that have to quote fees, because we're not salespeople. I'm not a salesperson. Peter's not a salesperson. And sometimes to quote a large fee is scary, but I also know from the other end, what it costs to make payroll,
But
and
yeah, it's not just that, but you, Lauren, and our team, when there's something extra to do, or we have to reprint documents or
right,
add something, remind me how much time this is taking
right,
Mm.
and
right.
effort away from other things. And that's taught me, well, wait a minute before you do these things. I think the other thing that helped to have Lauren in the room was I could easily go off into a legal kind of uh,
Rabbit hole.
yeah, and well, we could do this or we could do that, which to me was fascinating. But the clients, it was like, oh my God, I'm getting out of here. Please get me out of here. So I think having Lauren there, like she said, she could say, well, let's get focused on without saying that in so many words,
Right.
but let's get focused on what they really need. And I think even Lauren's just physically being there, she is a symbol of the team.
Mhm,
And the team knows there's lots of work to do this. The team wants to get paid.
mhm,
And we have set prices, darn it, and they're in writing, and those are the prices.
mhm.
So
Mhm.
she's just a reminder to me of that. And so hopefully that my legal discourses aren't as complicated as they used to be. And because that was interesting to me, but not to anybody else. And that was deadly. It didn't help the client either.
No.
So
Right. Right.
didn't help
Because a
them at all.
confused mind says no if you start.
No,
And
Right.
a lot of
exactly.
times for attorneys, you have to remember, and I love this approach of you being together, but you're the expert. This is why they're coming there. And a lot of times when people make suggestions or say, well, we could do this or we could do that, they're like, I thought this guy was an expert. He should be sort
Mhm.
of telling us what
Right.
we should be doing. And a lot of times for any of us, when you're on a conversation and you're there to serve somebody, they're calling you because you're the expert, and we have to remember that first. And second, Peter, I love what you said with Lauren being there and really showing that you're not buying documents. I could see if it's just the attorney where like, oh yeah, we'll just check this box and this box and this box. They're like, going back to
Hmm.
the legal Zoom analogy, well, can I just get this? That you are selling planning, not
Mhm.
documents, and a process and a team-centric approach. So when Lauren's in there, she's like, okay, great. Now this is what's going to happen next. Then we're going to have your design meeting. Then we're going to
Mhm.
have the paralegal
Right.
here. Then client services. I mean, they're seeing that, wow, this is a team-centric approach, and they're buying relationship with you all, but also the process, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, very much so. We have our process written down on a sheet that every client gets. So we show them, here you are today, you're at your initial meeting. After after on your way out, you're going to meet with a vet, you're going to schedule your design meeting. Then you're going to come back for your, what we call our milestone meeting. In between those two meetings, you're going to meet with Peter via Zoom and do a review of your documents. So, we kind of walk them through what the whole process is, and then end with letting them know that they're going to be on our maintenance program for the next year. So, we kind of take them through that whole, and it's all written out on a piece of paper, and they take it home with them so that they can remember that this is our process.
And they
So
see the roadmap there.
yes.
So that, I bet, is just phenomenal for them to
Mhm.
say, I want to go with you, even if you are the most expensive versus the other people that I met, because of this process and because of your active listening and your care and your collaboration that you're really communicating to them in that initial meeting.
Yeah, we had clients in yesterday, and they noted, they were like, you guys are so friendly here. You know, they were shocked at that we were a law office and we were so friendly and welcoming to them. And I thought that was really nice. That made me, I said, well, that's exactly what we're hoping that people will feel, you know, when they come to the office. So that was
Absolutely.
good.
What tips in closing would you all leave? So, Loren, from the client service coordinator, what tips would you give to client service coordinators listening to this in regards to getting involved in the process? And that's a role we're talking about that you serve in amongst your many other right now. But for this conversation, that's really what you're doing, being the cruise director, if you will. And what tips would you give in regards to streamlining their process and really getting involved in the process, and that you're just not there to, greet clients and manage a calendar?
Yeah, well, the main thing I think is that, you know, I really enjoy the client contact. To me, that's the fun part of the job. To talk, whether I'm talking to them on the phone for, you know, the initial triage, or, you know, sitting with them at the initial meeting. I just really enjoy that part of it. Being, you know, hearing the stories, you know, of their life. Peter always asked people like, how did you meet? And, you know, the information about their kids. To me, that's the interesting part of the job. I could be in client meetings all day. I mean, I really enjoy that. Of course, I have other things to do, but so for me, that's the fun part. But then it's also, since I do the drafting of the documents in the office, it's really helpful for me to understand the plan and what we're doing for these people and why. So for kind of a selfish reason, it's really important for me to kind of meet these people, know who they are and what it is we're doing for them, so that when I go to draft their documents, I you know, I'm not like I'm not disjointed from them. I'm kind of part of it, you know. So, but I think that anybody that really enjoys working with people, it's a great way to get out of sitting behind your desk, you know, all day. Get in there, really talk to the clients, engage with them. I think that it makes a difference. You know, I think it makes the clients feel closer to the firm, you know, and I always end the meeting thanking them and welcoming them to the firm. You know, I'm like, now you're part of the HighPoint family, you know, so welcome to the firm. You know,
How
I think
great.
it's important that somebody does that, you know.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is just, job satisfaction, absolutely, being involved in the stories, and also having their story, how much more it helps you to really do the drafting and be part of their plan, protecting Peter's time, really being involved in regards to just, clocking in and clocking out and having a job. You're making a difference. You're making an impact, and they're making an impact on your life just as much by them sharing so much of their
Sure.
family.
Yeah, it really, I think it makes the day much more interesting, you know, and you care more about the client when you know about them and their families. You know?
Yeah. Peter, what would be your tips to the attorneys in regards to enrolling your client service coordinator and your team into some of the client interaction, the client appointments, and the benefits that it has provided for you as an entrepreneur and the attorney?
Sure. I mean, the expectation I think most people have, especially if they've done a will, you know, when they were maybe first had children or something, is I've got to go see a lawyer and get a document. That's the expectation. Having Loren involved in the process, as the triage call and then in the room, I think changes the game. It's you're going through an experience with the team. Now, I don't know how far that gets them on that road, but we're really trying to move them away from that assumption, maybe based on their history, but this is different. You know, this is the real deal here. This is planning, not getting document from an attorney. And we think that's essential as AI, artificial intelligence, grows and grows, where you can get a document online, and we need to be very aware of that and have a very different value proposition for people. Not that we don't do great documents, but there's a lot more value, and we've got to be able to show that to them pretty quickly, because we are quoting a fee and having them sign up. So the triage, having Loren in the room, having a great administrator, receptionist, all that, I think shows that. And then we have a funding coordinator, that this is an experience and a process, not just, getting the piece of paper. So.
Great, great. Well, thank you both so much today for your time, for your wisdom, for being a trailblazer, and just a shining example of having a team-centric approach in a law firm. I would assert it makes all the difference in the world in regards to people calling you, referring their friends and family to your referral sources. Like you said, Loren, it's as simple as you all are so nice and we feel like part of the family here. And I would assert the two of you being together in that conference room really, really has impacted your conversion rates of having people. I mean, what percentage of people go forward once they get in the conference room with you? Do you have an idea?
Since COVID, at the beginning of COVID, it really went down. Everything was virtual, and we were having trouble, I think, really converting then. I think I don't know, Peter, are we up about 75% at this point? I think?
It's been much better since we've been back in the office more and seeing people face to face, mask to mask, but it has been much better. And I think for a lot of reasons, one of which is just the personal contact.
Yeah. We just looked at our P&L from last year compared to this year, and it's like, oh, thank God. Thank God it's definitely, we're back, it's like, so it took us a while to kind of work it out, after the COVID thing. But once we could get back, we found though that getting back in the office, even when we were just 2 days a week, made all the difference in the world in our conversions. Being able to hand a legal services agreement over to somebody, have them sign it, hand me their credit card, it made all the difference in the world versus waiting for them to get back to us, email the services agreement, wait for it to get signed, tell them to go online and pay their bill, on our website. And we had all that in place, but it's much easier to close a sale in person, I think.
Yep. And you have to know your audience. You all know Bucks County, you know your audience, you know your clients, you know how you all operate. And I love that you paid attention to that and got back in the office. And I'm hearing that from a lot of firms right now. They're like, we're ready to, the clients want to get back in the office, mask or no mask, what have you. They just want to be in the room with us.
Yeah, they were so relieved when we told them that, we were, even when we were just 2 days a week, they were so relieved that they had that option to come into the office. For the initial meeting and the signing meeting, we find are the two important. Design meetings can be done, virtually, Zoom or virtually, but the initial meeting, and in Pennsylvania, you have to have the signing meeting in person.
Yes. All right. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Molly.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you.